There was a recruiter that came in. He would always mention to me that I could come down and talk to him about careers in the Army. He mentioned a job as a combat medic, and playing right into my key strengths of just wanting to help people. I imagined what a better way to be able to do that than enlist in the Army in a healthcare career as a medic to maintain the health and welfare of the men and women serving our country.
It was October of 1952 when I went into the service, and of course 1954 when I got out of the service. I went into the Coast Guard in Kansas City, and I was 20 and a half years old.
Well, I finished medical school in 1966, and I was an intern from 66 to 67 when the Vietnam War heated up. And so all the physicians were either drafted or joined up at that time. And so to avoid the draft, I just enlisted.
When you come into a country that you've never been into, the first thing you're doing is trying to absorb every bit of your surroundings. So what it looks like, what it feels like, what it smells like, what you're about to be a part of. And it is an adrenaline rush, at the same time the scariest thing you've ever done. Thousands and thousands of miles away.
So it was a long ways from either direction, and there isn't hardly anybody that lives out on these little islands from Alaska, so therefore it was a long ways from anywhere. Our presence in this area up in the Bering Sea was very important to our government, because this is the only way they could track and know exactly what stage of development that Russia was in with these atomic bomb things that they were doing that in the air, and of course the air carried over this area and dropped as rainwater, and that was information that the intelligence needed to know. It's the only way they could get it.
Okay, this is a picture of a Catholic orphanage near Saigon. And about once a week, the physicians in our clinic would go down to this orphanage and treat these sick babies. These are babies that were born of Vietnamese girls and American soldiers, and they were not socially accepted very well in Vietnamese society, so most of them ended up in an orphanage. And we'd go down there once a week and treat ear infections and colds and flu and things like that. It was operated by Catholic nuns, and there was probably 100 babies in there. The American military never goes out to conquer anybody. We always go out to try to help. And so in Vietnam, we spent just about as much time taking care of Vietnamese civilians as we did American troops.
So we get our first mission assigned to us, and it seems pretty simple. We're going to take an award to the Iraqi National Army that we've been working with. A lot of advise and assist missions is what we were doing. So we're the final truck in the convoy, and again, about 30 minutes out, an explosive goes off. An EFP is what it's called, a projectile, to penetrate all of our up-armored vehicles. It came through the back side of the truck, and it actually struck one of our soldiers, kind of went through his helmet, and he came right down into my lap. So I was sitting down in the hull of this truck. We've got two guys out the back. It hit him and he came down. At that time, my senses were slowly coming back. I checked myself, I'm good, and then just faintly heard screams of, "We need a medic." And I heard that a few times, and finally in my head it kind of sunk in, and I literally thought out loud, "Oh man, I'm a medic." I'm now faced with my first life or death situation, and I started helping this guy. The air was red, so nobody was coming to help me. It was just me, and we sustained his life through multiple different techniques, and then when it came down to it, breathing for him, just bagging the patient all the way back to the Roll 2 hospital.
I'm a little bit ambivalent when we're talking about war, because I don't like it. It's never pleasant and something that should never happen, but America's wars have always been different in the fact that we never go out to conquer anybody, but to rescue people and to save them. And take, for example, South Korea. The largest Christian church in the world is in Seoul, South Korea, and it's there today because the United States Army went in there in 1950 and we lost 52,000 men to ensure South Korea's freedom. And look at the country today. It's one of the most Christian countries in the world.
I never pass up the opportunity to thank any veteran that came before me. They definitely blazed this trail, set the way for us to follow, for us to emulate. You think of World War I, II, Vietnam veterans. Those guys and gals had an experience that was completely different from mine. Something they maybe didn't have a choice to do, but they served honorably in their country. And 2 years or 20 years, you're a veteran, and you did something that less than 1% of this nation's population will choose to do. So if there's anything that I would say out to the United States is thank you for all those who served prior to me. When somebody is truly willing to give everything, their life, the part of the story that I didn't tell you was Lieutenant Runyon that day when he got hit from that explosive. He asked me that morning to stand in the spot where they had me standing. So that was my spot to stand that day. He said he was tired of not being able to see anything. So he wanted to get a little better view. And he asked me if he could stand in my spot that day, just, take the ride and see the sights instead of sitting down in the bottom of the truck where it's boring, you can't see anything and you just fall asleep, which I did. But where he stood was the spot I was assigned until he asked me not to. So you can't ever forget that. It's more than an adrenaline rush to me anymore. It's the most prideful job I could ever imagine doing. So thank you.